Hey everyone, welcome back to the moment where we're 9 days into this year. Okay, that's just like one thing that I have to say. It's not great out there, but we're here. We're excited. We have a fantastic guest co-host in Laurie Kilmartin. Y'all know Laurie. She's a comedian. She's everywhere. She has her special on Hulu, Cis Woke Grief Slut, which, listen, trademark that if you haven't already. And she's also a late night writer. You've laughed at all her jokes. And now you're seeing her face in all the places these days. Laurie Kilmartin is here. And as always, my wonderful co-host, Rebecca Senanez. Good morning, you two.
Good morning.
Today on the show, we're going to have Katie Phang, who is a fantastic journalist that we all know and love, to talk about what is happening with the ICE shooting and the murdering of a U.S. citizen in Minnesota and the narrative that the Trump administration is just hoping you will sign off on. But first, let's get into our hot topics. We're going to talk about this new Trump interview that has been getting these like little updates over the last couple days, and I've been obsessing over it, including the fact that his morality is the only thing that keeps him in check, whether or not the U.S. is headed to Greenland, and the world is unhinged, but the award show season goes on, which is great to have Laurie here for that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the hell do you still make it funny when nothing feels funny? You guys, a lot's going on. Rebecca, kick us off. What's going on with this New York Times interview?
All right. So yesterday, the New York Times, I got a push notification that just said Trump lays out a vision of power restrained only by my own morality, which felt in a week of like intense news, like a wild little cherry on top, where it just feels like, oh, got it. But in it, like the article itself was also fascinating. You know, he talks first of this vision of international power, specifically after Venezuela. And this is where this quote comes from, where he says, they say, like, are there any checks on you? And he says, yeah, my own morality, my own mind. And I was like, he's a manifesting girly, you know, like, I guess, okay. And then he talks about the United States going to Greenland, which we're going to talk a little bit about more later. But I specifically found it interesting that he seems like totally undeterred by like the potential breakup of NATO. You know, he acknowledged that there may be a trade-off here where like, oh, you know, if we want Greenland, we might have to get out of NATO. And that seemed to be no problem. And they also point out in this article, you know, that this is my like weird special interest, nuclear war. Apparently, like a half a century worth of nuclear arms agreements with Russia is set to expire in 4 weeks. And like, what an interesting time when Russia and China are seeing the United States go into Venezuela unchecked to have this nuclear arms agreement come back up. And he says, if it expires, you know, like he seems pretty blasé about it. So anyways, the article is worth a read, as Meredith said, but these were the things that really struck me in it. What struck you, Meredith, my friend?
Well, there's so many things that struck me. And I want to kick it to Laurie first, because I want to know, Laurie, when you hear the term he's being ruled by his own morality, just like off the top of your head.
What's scary is I think he believes that. I think he has a moral code that no one else shares on earth, maybe for other pedophiles. So I think he really believes what he's saying. And I do think his mind is keeping him in check because he's losing it and he's all over the place. Like, I don't know what's worse, having a full evil mind like Bannon keeping you in check, or a rapidly demented mind like Trump's. It seems like he has to lean on Stephen Miller now because his brain is sliding out of his ears, his shot ears. And so we're actually being ruled by some little cabal that's in the White House that we're not completely sure of.
Right, yeah. Like we're being ruled by Stephen Miller's morality at this point, right?
Scariest dude. Stephen Miller, who literally looks like Lord Voldemort. Like, come on. Like, it's a little on the nose. Like, Laurie, as somebody in a writer's room, doesn't it feel a little on the nose here?
It is. When they say history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. It's like, no, I think it's literally repeating. I mean, Miller and Goebbels, is it Goebbels? Face to face, they look almost exactly alike, you know? So, yeah, let's shake it up, history. I thought you just rhymed.
Yeah, let's shake it up. Let's shake it up.
Well, I'll tell you what, history is repeating itself though, because in that article, there's a little tidbit. You know me, like, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff happening in that article, but my favorite part is the fact that the New York Times revealed there is a framed photo on Donald Trump's desk, or perhaps on the banquette behind it. People are going to tell me I'm wrong, whatever. There is a framed photo of John Jr. underneath the president's desk. He is mimicking the very famous JFK Jr. photo of him playing as a 3-year-old under his father's desk. And it's a photo of him mimicking that, and it's in a gold frame that says favorite son.
Well, I would just encourage Don Jr. to continue to mimic JFK Jr. and go on a plane right now. Let's see what happens.
Fair enough.
Fly to Martha's Vineyard today, Don Jr.
With little world. I mean, that's what I think is so wild, is that you always see this little obsession with things like the Kennedys or these dynasties, because they are trying to repeat them. That's the thing. They're not doing this as a funny joke. So anyway, I mean, I think there's a lot to take away from the article, but one of the things that really stood out to me is Trump is celebrating a birthday this year. He's turning 80 years old. And one of the things that I guess Biden comes up multiple times in the interview. It's move the fuck on. This is your ex talking about you all the time. Move on. And so he talks about him, but I'm curious to know from both of you, do you think that we're going to see Trump celebrate a big 80th birthday this summer?
I think it's going to coincide with 250th. And I think it's all one and the same. He's out there buying marble for the Kennedy Center armrests. Did you see this?
Yeah. I can't imagine anything more uncomfortable.
Right? Oh my God, that sounds awful.
Right.
But it's just bizarre. But my point being is I really do think that the world is run by Vladimir Putin, Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, these aging men who on some level deep inside know that they are going to die and fear death, and are doing anything they can to cling to a legacy, cling to life, cling to power. Did you ever see the movie Moonstruck? Literally. And Olympia Dukakis has this whole theory. Her husband is cheating on her, and she comes to this theory that men cheat on women because they're afraid of death. And at the end of the movie, she turns to her husband who's cheating on him, and she says, "Cosmo, you're gonna die." And that's what I feel like. This is what I feel like with Trump all the time, is I'm just Trump, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. Let it go. Let it go. And that's my theory, is that these are all men who are afraid to die, who are destroying the world to cling to a sense of importance and power and eternal life on earth. What do you think, Laurie?
I agree. And I was thinking recently, there's you kind of always have this fantasy of wow, if I get a terminal disease, I'm going to take somebody else out before I do it. And it's always some politician you hate. But I decided to take out one of those guys that's trying to hack death. How awesome would it be to murder Brian Johnson before I die?
Yes.
That's my commitment to your audience.
I'll
try to do that.
Community for that. I'm gonna give you absolute community for that.
Thank you.
Well, I also think it's here's the funny thing. It's the most relatable that I feel to Trump. I'm scared of dying too, but I'm not afraid to say it. And the other night I was falling asleep and I said to my husband, I can't sleep because I keep thinking about dying. And he was like, okay, this feels like a therapist thing. It's I think it's a very natural feeling, but at the same time, I'm not trying. One of the things I took from the article is he's making huge renovations to Dulles Airport. And I was he wants an airport.
Oh, sure.
He wants an art. Here's something that wasn't on our prep that I'm just going to throw out there really quick before we move on to our next one. Yeah. One thing that got sort of buried after the ICE murder is that Venezuela is going to give the United States 30 to 50 million barrels of oil that Trump personally, as the president, is going to decide what that money does. Quickly, what do you think he does with what will now be at least $1 billion?
I would say, more Trump coin. I think he's just going to invest in his crypto and drive the price down, then drive it up, and then sell it. I mean, uh, I've never seen an oil company redistribute wealth to people, and I certainly don't expect Donald Trump to. He's going to steal it like he's stealing everything. Yeah.
What do you think,
Okay,
Meredith?
here's the thing. How much is it again?
30 to 50 million barrels, and it's like $50 a barrel. And so like the math ends up being over $1 billion.
I gotta be real with you. When I heard this, I was like, I have no idea what that fucking means. 30 million barrels. I was like, how much is that? It's like me the other day. Remember, I thought I fucking hacked the system because I asked for Dysport instead of Botox. And then they're like, well, you need more Dysport than Botox. So here's your fucking bill at the end of the appointment. So here's I was like, is that much? I know that's a really dumb question, but like, I can't be the only one thinking it. Like, how much is that?
Well, if you're right, and it's just $1 billion, didn't we just give ICE $186 billion? Like, it's not that much money if that's the correct number for everything we're risking to invade Venezuela.
Well, my pitch is that he's going to buy Greenland with it. He's going to try and there's a Reuters report that he wants to give every Greenland citizen between $10,000 and $100,000 to buy Greenland. And I was just like, I bet this is how his crazy little wheels are turning. He was like, let's take the Venezuelan oil money and then go buy Greenland.
That absolutely fits within his morality. I definitely see him thinking that. I just wish that the contractors he has screwed over the decades could each call one resident of Greenland and say he doesn't pay.
He's
so
not
they'll understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Reference check.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
We have a clip, though, I believe, of Stephen Miller talking to Jake Tapper, which, like, by the way, talk about a couple of horrible men, just in different fonts.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? Like,
yeah.
But Vienna's gonna pull that clip up for us because I don't know, white men talking. Why not?
Exactly.
Out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now, so I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United States,
but your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation.
No, but
that's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again, is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out the...
I guess my biggest takeaway is Katie, DM me back. Katie, you left me on red. We've talked before. We have. Katie Miller and I have talked before. And I said, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We had a very friendly exchange. That's actually not me being facetious. And I asked Katie if she wanted to connect a little bit more on some of the other stuff that she's saying, but she has left me on red. But I think, you know what? I guess my question, Rebecca, you probably know this much more than me, but like, so this is why it's coming up, is like, what value is it if we have Greenland other than just like manifest destiny?
I mean, I think it is like the Don Rowe doctrine. I think he genuinely sees the world and is like, I want the Western hemisphere, and Russia can have the Eastern hemisphere, and China can have Asia. You know, like I think it is as simple as that. In this New York Times article, they ask him and he's like, it's a psychological thing. I just wanna own it. And I think it is, I don't know, with Trump, I always think it's in some ways incredibly simple. Like, I don't think it's a strategy. I don't think it's like I think it is just, he looks at a map and he says, why doesn't Greenland belong to me? And I think he wants the whole Western hemisphere. I genuinely think that's, who knows how far that goes or what that looks like, but that's what I think. Is he looks at Greenland, he says, why is that not mine?
Why not look at Alaska and say, why doesn't Canada own that? I mean, why do we own Alaska at all? It's ridiculous.
Or even Russia. Like, it is closer to Russia than the United States. The whole thing is so absurd. And that's why it's also scary that he doesn't care about NATO going away, because NATO was sort of like the opposite of the Monroe Doctrine, is like, how do we have international cooperation in a way that like doesn't result in this? And it's also scary why he's okay with nuclear arms deals expiring, you know, like it's crazy.
You know,
No. You go, Laurie, because I'm at a loss.
I think we need to go to Santa Monica High School and find the kids who didn't beat the shit out of Stephen Miller and ask why he still has his original teeth. He should be incapacitated, unable to speak, and drooling from the mouth if you looked at any of the footage from when he was in high school. And I can't believe these so-called bullies let him get away with this. So let's take it to the source and get really angry at his origin story.
This is such a deep cut, but a woman I went to college with who was very political in college and then went into local politics in the state. We went into college afterward. The other day, she posted that she went to middle school and high school with Stephen Miller. And like from middle school, she said that this cretin was spewing racial hate. And like, I don't know, in middle school, the thought of like, where did you get this idea? You know, like how does a 13-year-old boy, but it was so interesting to see this woman be like, yeah, I remember. It's like remembering that kid you went to school with and you're like, yeah, he was a piece of shit when we were 12 and he's a terror now.
And his family isn't like that. I don't know if his parents are like that, but definitely the like cousins and etc. are like disowning him publicly. So
I also, it's like, as we got to move on, but like as a Jew, I'm like, the shame that like, where do you think your grandparents came from? The Mayflower? Like the shame that you would take these Nazi tactics that are like historically imposed upon us and do anything except fight back against that, let alone like reinstate them on a global level, is just like, it is so beyond shameful to me as, you know, like extended family. It's like, it's bananas.
Well, we're going to have our guest on soon who will be able to give us so much more insight. But there is one thing that I want to get Laurie's insight on. And that is, you know, last week we had the Critics' Choice Awards. Chelsea Handler and her writing team, I think, absolutely killed it. I think I appreciate the fact, I think Conan's great, but I do believe in women in awards shows. And so one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is like, you know, even last week, I mean, they had to contend with like writing around Venezuela. They had some good jokes about it. But now it's an even crazier week. So what do you think happened? Like, can you walk us through like what happens in the writer's room, not just on the Academy Awards, like you've written on, but in like weekly late night stuff when you have these really hard things happen?
Well, awards are so tricky too, because the audience, it's not a normal audience. The audience is celebrities, and they're all hungry or drunk or freaked out because they want to win the award that they're nominated for. So they're a terrible crowd. They don't laugh at a lot of things, and they ooh things really easily because they know they're going to be caught on camera responding to whatever your Venezuela joke is. And so
I hadn't thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're a terrible audience. So that's number one thing you got to deal with is what kind of sounds do you want to hear from the crowd besides laughter,
Mm.
and I don't know. I guess it depends. It's host by host.
Right.
You know, do you want to provide a bubble where people can just forget for 3 hours that there are horrible things happening and we're just going to enjoy some silly jokes? There's complete 1000% value in that. Sometimes you just need to leave things alone for a little bit and escape and get a couple good laughs. And then with the late night shows more, it's you are responding every single day to what's happening, and it does. It's weird because I used to think, oh, late night's sort of dying a little bit. I mean, obviously just because of streaming and stuff, but who watches late night is Donald Trump. And
Yeah,
so
he sure does.
and it's really important to him that he not be joked about. And so every time a late night show hits back a little bit, it's something. It drives him insane. And they care about that. More than even and we do. We're just like, it's just a
Right.
joke, you put it up there. And they really are enraged by it. So that's also something.
Okay, I have one more question before we transition to our guest. And Laurie, if you had to pick the president who's the best at taking a joke, like about themselves at their detriment, that you have seen in the last, 40 years, who would you say?
Okay, I mean, Obama's a kind of an obvious choice. He
Right.
was good at telling jokes. I kind of think George Bush was good at it too.
Yeah.
I don't like him, obviously, although I like him a
Right.
lot more than Trump. But I actually think
Yeah.
he understood he was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And went with
Now watch me drive this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly,
Yes.
we love that. Well, we're gonna prep to our guests. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that's going on. In particular, we're gonna talk about ICE in Minnesota. We have with us today Katie Phang. She is an independent journalist and trial lawyer. You know her from the Katie Phang News channel on YouTube. We are thrilled she's with us today. Oh my God, look at her. There she is.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. What a great way to end a shitty week, being able to be with you guys.
We feel the same way. My God.
I'm like thinking, we barely kind of crawled out of the ashes of 2025. Felt very Phoenix-like when we started 2026. I was reading all about it being the year of the fire horse and the Chinese zodiac and how it kicks off. And I was like, shit, it's been a whole year and 7 days so far. So I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, let's unfortunately just start with it, because let's talk about the Trump administration's reaction to an ICE agent shooting and murdering an unarmed American woman. Renee Good in Minneapolis earlier this week. She was a poet, a wife, and a mom of 3. And the reaction from Trump has been pretty jarring. The narrative that the administration has put out is that this woman was a domestic terrorist, that she intentionally struck the ICE agent with her car. I know you've watched this video multiple times. I was watching a video that you did earlier today about this. Can you help us make a little sense of how this narrative is getting spun by the videos? And do you think that the majority of Americans have seen this video?
Oh, I think the majority of Americans have seen some version of bystander footage. Whether they've seen all of the angles is left to be seen. There was an incredibly, I thought, well done, comprehensive video that the New York Times put together. It cobbled together several bystander footage videos. And I thought it was incredibly well done because it began prior to the shooting. And that was a really critical part of it, because what you're hearing from the Trump administration, as is typical with the Trump regime, as we call it, they're lies. It's a false narrative. And as somebody who did a lot of crisis comms and PR prior to going into full-time media, because I've been a trial lawyer for decades, you never want a client or a party having a particular position to which they are committed. And straight out of the gate, you heard Kristi Noem calling her a domestic terrorist. You saw Trump in his absurd Truth Social. You now even have JD Vance calling her a whole bunch of horrible stuff. And, putting aside us yawning about the typical leftist, kind of violent rhetoric that only comes from leftist type of messaging, what's really unfortunate is that this is a U.S. citizen who was murdered after dropping off her 6-year-old son at school whose partner, there's new video footage that just got released today, this morning. Her partner was actually getting back into the SUV when she was shot and murdered in front of her. Like, this is not our America. This is not what it is. The Portland incident late yesterday, also CBP, the Customs Border Protection, is now claiming that the people involved in that shooting, who thank God didn't die, quote, trying to use their vehicle to ram the agents, fearing for their life, they shot at the occupant and the driver. I mean, it's becoming a proliferating event, but I think it's also a cruel and nasty reminder that this is not the first officer-involved shooting for ICE that we've had since Trump decided to launch his really draconian immigration enforcement campaign.
I feel like one of the things that there's so many things to unpack, but one of the things that you just said there that I've been having the thought about is it's really interesting to me when they do this doublespeak. There was no video of what happened in Portland. We just got this information that there was this shooting. And now that we know the Trump administration blatantly lies about it and are using this, oh, there's a domestic terrorist group teaching people how to use cars. I saw this story and I immediately was like, well, that can't be true. You know, like I didn't believe, it's hard to believe anything. Like, how do Americans believe anything when there's the administration proliferating an idea that there's a domestic terrorist group teaching people to use cars to kill ICE, and then we're seeing videos that like negate that?
It's why I am saying we can believe our own eyes, right? And I think it's an absolutely tragic thing to say, that we cannot trust official government information anymore. And I was never a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination prior to any iteration of this administration, including the first term. But now I seem to ascribe to a lot of it, because I feel like you cannot believe anything that comes from them. If you look at official government websites, they have now been totally deployed as propaganda for this administration. Yeah. The wisest, sanest thing would have been for them to say, we don't know what has happened. We're going to conduct a full and thorough and fulsome investigation. But now we're hearing that the feds have frozen out state and local investigators from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in Minnesota, which is the investigative arm of the state of Minnesota, to be able to find out what happened in Minneapolis. And so now, you know, whatever comes out of the federal government is going to be a self-serving narrative. And that means that we in media, and frankly, in culture, in every aspect of American life, we have a duty and obligation to seek the truth. And that is why I think it's important. I like to say that knowledge is power, and I'm empowering people with the truth. We need to get it out there, and we need people to understand that this government is not out to help them, but out to get them.
Amen.
Okay, I have a really crazy conspiracy theory, and I want to throw it out to the group.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist either, like at all, unless it's about the Kardashians. But Minnesota, Minneapolis has been such a big thing for Trump. I've been talking about that for a while. We've had Hope Walls on. We've talked about that with her.
Yep.
This is a crazy thing. Do you guys, is there a world where early this week they said to them, like, hey guys, ICE, as you're in here, if something happens, if you feel like you got to do something, that's okay. Like, do you think they were waiting for a moment that they could escalate to that?
100% that is not a conspiracy theory, because we know that months ago when DUI hire Pete Hegseth did that big convening of generals and admirals and everybody, and gratuitously stood there and strutted around like a peacock and said, you know, we're basically going to use American cities as military training grounds. Yeah. For what? There is a reason why the federalization of the National Guard and the deployment of the U.S. military from every aspect, legally, factually, and otherwise, has been condoned, especially by federal judges as of late, because there is not the need for them. They have been trained to be killers. And that is okay, right? If we are training our military to be lethal weapons, that's kind of where it comes from. They're not trained to do day-to-day street interactions with people like our local law enforcement are, which is why you see a lot of local law enforcement, including the Minneapolis police chief and in other states and places like Portland and others, saying, we don't need you here. We are fully capable of handling what is happening. We don't need you to instigate. And in this instance, considering the Somali fraud allegations and the fact that they are now withholding $10 billion in healthcare funds for children from 5 Democratic states, California, you know, Oregon, and otherwise, you want to have and you want to foment protests, or you can call them violent and chaotic, so you can deploy the National Guard and you can militarize these cities so that in 2026, when we have our midterms, you have such a huge military presence that are standing there watching you get in line to vote that you, out of fear, don't go and vote.
Do it. Oh, go ahead. No, Laurie, you go, please.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going after, they are targeting Black and brown Americans. Why would you risk that by standing in line to vote? That's actually quite terrifying that you laid that out.
Who wants the harassment? Who wants the fear of U.S. citizens? As we saw, Nicole Good was a U.S. citizen. Who, as a U.S. citizen, wants to be dragged into custody to have to prove your citizenship? And by the way, if you get dragged into custody, what don't you do? You don't get to vote right then and there, right?
And also, by the way, he's already started dismantling the mail-in ballots. Trump has gone and said, oh, that, you know, like he's doing it from. What I have found really terrifying about this week is it feels like it's coming from every side. It's like they're pulling out from underneath us. They're pulling out information from underneath us and then attacking us and telling us what we didn't see. My answer to this conspiracy that I kind of want to like take forward is yesterday in a press conference, Vice President J.D. Vance, who is like the most, like truly maybe the worst person on earth, although Stephen Miller,
Stephen Miller.
You think so? Okay. He said, well, I want to watch a clip because he said that this person, this ICE agent has been
Thanks for taking my question. So the head of Minnesota's investigations agency says that the U.S. Attorney's Office has essentially cut off the state investigations agency's access to the investigation. What is the precedent for that, and why shouldn't the Minnesota officials on the ground have access and evidence to work on this investigation?
First of all, I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to ask you, like, does this meet absolute immunity? It also, like, it struck me that the Portland shooting happened right after. I was like, it sounds to me like he just gave everybody a pass. Cook, Katie, go cook.
So a few thoughts. One, being an absolutely petty bitch. Can you imagine coming home to that mansplaining couch fucker? I could not imagine being Usha Vance, who I think also is a whole other fucking conversation to be had. But no, Yale Law School is clamoring for its law degree back from this guy. There is no absolute immunity. It doesn't exist. There is this idea that there is federal immunity that is possible for a defense if a federal agent like the guy who killed Renee Nicole Good gets criminally prosecuted. However, it doesn't give you absolute immunity. You have to be able to do in conduct within the scope of your duties as a federal agent, and you can't go beyond that. You can't violate your training to be able to do it. And we know that that's exactly what this guy did. But you have absolutely hit the nail on the point, though. When you have the vice president of the United States with a footnote law degree, again, Yale wants it back, who says just so definitively in my mansplaining way that there is absolute immunity, and you're some dumbass federal agent, you're like, well, shit, I'm just going to go do whatever the hell I want to do because the vice president told me that I have absolute fucking immunity. So you know what? Am I going to parade in J.D. Vance at your trial when you're prosecuted and say, well, here's my defense, J.D. Vance? It's just wild, which is why I mentioned yesterday the need for the state and local authorities to be able to get charges in these instances is so critical because then Trump can't pardon your state offenses. Yeah. If you go federal, Trump can pardon it. But if you go state, even if it gets removed to federal court, because that's what happens when you prosecute a federal officer and they do not successfully assert immunity and it ends up being removed to federal court, the state and local prosecutors remain on the court. It literally just takes up the geography and space in federal court, and the case gets tried in federal court. But if you are convicted, it's still a state law that you violated as that federal officer, and you cannot be pardoned by Donald Trump.
this just occurred to me, but do you think this is part of why they're not letting state investigators into the FBI investigation, to make it into simply a federal and not a state level offense?
Yeah, I tell my 11-year-old kid, I've been telling her for years, if you have nothing to hide, why are you not being transparent? Why don't you show me what's going on, right? We teach
Right.
everybody that just as basic people. If there's nothing to hide about this shoot, if you think it's clean, then why would you not allow everyone and anyone to be able to see it? It's the same shit about the Epstein files. If you don't have anything to hide, you would put it all out there, right? I mean, it's just so fundamental, which is why I think this constant slap in the face of the intelligence of the American people is going to come back to bite them in the ass.
I pray.
You know, I do have to say, before the holiday, Epstein files were everywhere. That's all we were talking about. And now it has fallen behind, you know, a little bit. So I'm curious to know, Katie, like, how connected do you think these are in terms of distraction? And does like, throwing it to the group, what is the latest on the Epstein files?
Funny you should ask. I just did a video for my YouTube channel that's going to drop in a few hours later today about the latest in the Epstein files. There's 3 new subpoenas from House Oversight going to Les Wexner, longtime billionaire buddy of Jeffrey Epstein. He's the former CEO of Victoria's Secret. I said, God rest her soul. The late Virginia Joffrey has testified in a deposition that Les Wexner was one of the men to whom she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. He got a subpoena by House Oversight to sit for a sworn depo, as well as the longtime lawyer and accountant for the Epstein estate. They, in their individual capacities, got subpoenas as well. And so that is very interesting. And then you also have a bipartisan push, which was incredibly creative legally, from Congressman Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey to get a special master, or an independent monitor, as it is sometimes called, appointed from the Southern District of New York to compel the DOJ to actually comply with the law. Because as we know, the DOJ keeps on saying, oh my God, look, I found another 1 million documents. Oh my God, I found another 2 million documents and I can't comply. I'm trying so hard. They want a special master to be appointed who kind of is a taskmaster and says, do it by this date and give me a reason, a real reason. And you can test the legitimacy of the excuses from the DOJ.
So you mean it shouldn't just be up to Trump's own morality to restrain himself? Is that perhaps what you're saying here?
God forbid, right? Yeah.
I just want to grab Pam Bondi by the ponytail and put her in jail, but I guess we can't do that.
No, we can't. I mean, but I can say that, well, you know what? I take it back. When we resume power and the Democrats are actually the adults in the room, assuming that Pamela Joe was complicit in some crimes that can still survive a statute of limitations, which I probably think is happening in real time. We just don't see it. Maybe we do. There can be some version of accountability. I just think that part of accountability has to include total sunlight as the disinfectant on what has happened here. And we're not going to get that until we're really controlling those levers of power.
Something that this is like a little bit of left field. This week on January 6th, the White House put out this bizarro page explaining that Nancy Pelosi had been the proliferator of January 6th. I made a video about it, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that were in my comments saying this is a Democratic hoax, never happened. So then I went to go make a second video, Katie, looking like to try and pull up some facts. And I didn't realize the DOJ had erased January 6th court records. And like this happened on the same day that they were telling me the video that I saw with my own eyes was a lie. And it really, like, I didn't sleep well last night. Like I feel like this real Orwellian chill where I'm like, the information is slipping out from underneath us. I went to go to try to explain to people based on court records what actually happened on January 6th, and they were not there. And I didn't know that they weren't there. It happened. The one that I happened to look at said updated May 2025. My question to you is like, what do we do? Are we supposed to be saving everything? Like I have this instinct now. Like I literally saved the video of Renee Nicole Good being killed to my phone just in case that I couldn't find it a year from now. What do you have any of, like as a journalist and as a lawyer, like how should Americans be gathering information without feeling nuts? Because I feel nuts.
Well, because they are actively trying to gaslight you. They are actively making you question, am I not allowed to believe my own eyes? And you know that you are. And it's interesting because when everything happened to Renee Nicole Good the other day, I actually posted on my social, people in Minneapolis, you need to save your videos. And I said, people, if you have Ring cameras, please check them out and save that, but save it in safe places, not your Jeff Bezos Amazon places, right? Like save it in places,
a hard drive,
your external hard drives. Let's go old school on this, right? Let's not put it in the cloud, because you are right. The DOJ was actively eliminating, erasing, removing, however you want to call it. In the legal phrase, we call it spoliation of evidence. And this is so fortuitous that you and I are having this conversation. Just a few days ago on January 6th, I interviewed an investigative journalist from NPR. You know, NPR began immediately back in 2021 compiling all of this videographic and photographic evidence from January 6th, and it's actually become a publicly accessible archive. And the reason that they did it is not only did they want to document, which was a huge memory and a stain on American history, but they started noticing that things were starting to be erased from the DOJ out of actual criminal prosecutions at the time. Because remember, they didn't all get pardoned until January of 2025. And so this guy, Tom Dreisbach, the investigative journalist, he's like, we were stunned. We sued in court to make them stop eliminating this evidence. And so now there's this huge public archive, but that's where we have forced ourselves to be. But you know who's doing it? It's NPR. NPR is always a moving target for this administration, which is why
public broadcasting ended this week, right? Like,
yeah, bye Sesame Street, right? I mean, this is the place that we find ourselves.
I'll say this. When it comes to saving screenshots of conversations, Chris Cuomo, just want to let you know that I did screenshot our conversation. So
did he try to delete
it, bro?
Sorry, he didn't try to delete it, but he probably you probably shouldn't have said what you said. But I already shared it on the internet, so what are you gonna do? Watch your DMs, Chris.
You guys need to come to South Florida for a field trip and go hang out with people that grew up with Katie Miller. I'm just gonna say.
No, that's good. That's good.
Katie, I have our conversation screenshotted as well. So that I will say. Katie, we are so grateful for you and the incredible independent reporting that you're doing. Can you remind our friends where they can find you?
Oh, that is so kind of you. Yes, I am Katie Phang News on YouTube, and I am at Katie Phang. It's Phang on all social media, including Substack. It has been liberating to go into independent media, and it also allows me to hang out with cool people like you. And again, all kidding aside, to end a particularly shitty week on a higher note, spending time with you guys. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Processing it together, Katie.
Right?
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. We'll come see you in South Florida. Watch out.
Y'all come down. We'll go do some sleuthing together.
I actually
about that. Trust me, there is some dirt there, my friend. Trust me.
I love this for us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Woo. Okay, Laurie, I gotta ask you. You hear all of that, and it's like, where can you find the funny? Like, when you even hear those stories, you're like, okay, like, where's the funny?
It's a challenge. You know, I just watching JD Vance talk made me realize, like, we all want Trump to die, but this is what we're going to be left with. And I have to hear that voice. Like, they've left us with no options.
He's a young, he's got years ahead of him.
I know. If some blood clot could take them both out and give us Mike Johnson, at least I'd rather hear that sniveling little Harry Potter lookalike for the next 3 years than either of those two.
Okay, I have to read this because Laurie, I'm going to assume, granted something else I saw, that you, like me, were probably raised Catholic.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how would you feel if the National Catholic Reporter put this statement out about you on their Instagram?
Right.
The vice president's comments justifying the death of Renee Good are a moral stain on the collective witness of our Catholic faith. My mother would find a way to resurrect herself to slap me across the face if that was being out there. Like, as a Catholic, when you hear that, like, don't you just know, like, that is the ultimate shame?
Oh, it is. And also, like, Pope Leo is actually bringing it. And I love what he's doing. And Francis too. Like, when the Catholic Church I grew up in, I was not into. Then all the pedophile stuff came. I'm like, why would anyone, right? And I've dragged my son to church once just so he knew how, what I dealt
What you
with
went
as
through?
a child. Yes. So I understand some of my trauma. But I mean, the pivot that they're doing on some issues, not, abortion, obviously, or gay rights, really, but their pivot they're doing on this is really impressive to me. And I think that's obviously coming from the Vatican, I, he's anyone who converts to the Catholic faith is
I
so
know.
suspicious to me. Like,
Me too.
it is so draconian. Why would you want to be a part of that? And so he's one of those converts, JD, that
Yeah.
takes to it and, loves Opus Dei and is like attracted to the Catholic Church from the year 800 or something, he's definitely not a Martin Sheen Catholic or a Berrigan Brothers Catholic. He's an old school evil guy,
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Like, I feel like when I found out he
I was
was,
going to say, I always love the Catholics. I don't know, the Catholics have always, my best friend, I always say my best friend growing up was a Catholic girl, Irish Catholic. And she was the first person that said to me when we were in middle school, we don't use the word gay as a derogatory term. And I never did again. And she said, we learned it in church and we don't do it. And ever since then, I was like, Catholics get a bad rap. Catholics have like a moral center there. So sorry, go ahead.
no, I just thinking like, and as soon as I found out he was a convert, I was like, oh yeah, like that,
right?
it completely tracks, who else is a convert? Who's that child actor who's now like an adult actor who's like fucking insane? The kid from Even
Scott
Steven.
Baio? What?
No.
Shia LaBeouf?
Shia LaBeouf is also a convert.
Really?
Which, like, yeah, and he loves Opus Dei. He loves Latin Mass. It's all that fucking bullshit.
Wow.
So anyway, on a lighter note, Rebecca, what's having a moment for you right now?
I don't know that this is necessarily a lighter note, but it has interested me, which is on TikTok. My feed is now filled with Europeans, Canadians, and Australians talking to Americans and saying, why aren't you protesting your government? And what's fascinating about it is, like, theoretically, they're very right. And I get it because, like, the United States is doing terrible things and it affects every single country. And it's such like a flat, unnuanced understanding of the lived American experience that it's like a little bit infuriating to see, where you're like, hey, this is a giant country where people's healthcare is attached to their work and our police carry guns and like all these nuanced things. And I see a lot of Americans giving this pushback, and it's the same Americans who've also been very loud about telling the Middle East how to run their countries. And it's just interesting to see this flip, to see the world trying to explain the American experience to us and to see it and be like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I agree. And it doesn't, like, you couldn't possibly understand the lived reality on the ground. It's having it, like, it's bizarro world, and it's important to see it. And I just find it absolutely fascinating. And that's what's having a moment for me. What's having a moment for you?
You know what? I'm going to kick it to Laurie first because I think she's got some really fun stuff going on. So let's lighten the mood.
Well, I hope it's fun. I mean, what I love this week is watching Iranians overthrow their government fucking finally. I mean, that happened in '79, and there's a whole 2 generations of women that have lived under this horrific regime that doesn't even let them. I mean, you just see young Iranian women doing cartwheels in the street, doing backflips, and the caption is, they're actually not allowed to do this. Like, what? You can't even move. And there's a bunch of video of Iranian women lighting a picture of the Ayatollah on fire with the cigarette they're smoking, which is so badass and so
is
cool.
Iconic behavior.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And it's exciting to see so many young women going, fuck this, and seizing their rights back. And I don't know if they're the complete driving force behind it, but the police are even responding, like authorities are even responding and siding with young people on this. And, Iran has so many young people and it's so much to contribute. And they've just been under this literally or metaphorically a veil for so long. And I can't wait to see how it turns out for them. I hope it's awesome.
I know. I like that. That's my like, I don't know, Richter scale for fun now. I'm like, what feels fun? What's happening?
Yeah, over the Iranian government. Yeah.
Also, too, like, just, here at the moment, we don't condone the use of nicotine products. But I will say,
yes, we do.
Rebecca, we've got at least 4 to 6 Gen Alphas watching right now.
I certainly don't encourage it. I'm just saying, after this week, I might.
Yes, here we go.
Yes, this is an
cool. This is an album cover. This is the coolest chick I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, this is.
And we actually condone anything the Islamic government, the Islamic revolution. I blanking on how exactly they're called, but if they're against it, I'm for it, and good for this gal.
Yeah,
right. And kids, I just want to say, this would not look half as cool with a vape.
With a vape. Yeah, I know. Smoke cigarettes like a real, a real addict.
Fuck up.
That's the theme of today's show.
Yeah, if you learned anything today, kids,
get lung cancer like your grandparents did.
Okay, please. The old-fashioned way. Get an old-fashioned cigarette addiction and switch to vaping when you're pretending it's better. Don't vape, you losers. But
speaking of losers, let's talk about my ex-boyfriend for a couple minutes. He's my moment. As always, my ex-boyfriend, Josh Hawley, for legal purposes, I need to say I've never met or known Josh Hawley, but I like to call him my ex-boyfriend. Why? I don't know. But why Josh Hawley is having a moment for me isn't just because he refuses to respond to my emails or his team refuses to respond to my emails.
True.
They do. But I am intrigued by the fact that Josh Hawley, Lisa Murkowski, Senator Susan Collins, Rand Paul, a few others, they broke with their party this week in regards to what was brought out in the Senate about keeping Trump in check around Venezuela. So Trump is pissed at all of the senators who voted against him. Now, it's a very long path to get this to go into effect, what the Senate passed the other day, because it would still need to go to the House and then it would need to go to Trump. So it's probably not going to happen. But these senators made a really interesting decision in breaking with the party. And we know that Trump does not take well to people breaking with the party. Like, look where Marjorie Taylor Greene is now. So I guess my moment is just are we seeing perhaps the fall of Rome? Like, these senators know now that they have openly upset Trump. So I think it's a good thing. And even if nothing comes of it, I'm excited about it. So you know what, Josh? Text me back. He doesn't have my number for legal purposes. But yeah, so that's my moment. We'll see what happens.
I can't get excited about anything that Murkowski or Collins do. They have stabbed women in the back so many times. I pin no hopes on them.
I know. I had this feeling in late November when Marjorie Taylor Greene, I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be not the shakeup that I want, but a move in the right direction. And then now I feel right back bogged down, but maybe you're right. It's it's slowly shaking out a little bit, and the midterms are coming up, God willing.
Well, you guys, we're cruising into the weekend. Anybody got any good plans?
I feel like Laurie. Yeah.
Well, if you're in Los Angeles, I'm doing a work in progress show at 4 p.m. On Saturday at the Elysian on Riverside in LA. And it's just $10. I'm going to be baking cookies. I want it to be a little cozy afternoon of comedy. I have some new stuff I'm working out and some old stuff I'm trying to find more punchlines for. But I've been doing comedy for a long time, so don't worry. It'll be a very good show. And, I don't really plan on doing any crowd work, so you can just show up and sit in the dark and let me entertain you for about an hour and feed you cookies.
I'm going to come through.
Awesome. I think that's my weekend plans. That sounds awesome.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you so much for being here. We will be back on Tuesday. I'm like, what are the days of the week again?
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen between now and then, but I know that I'm going to have one of Laurie's cookies. So everybody hang in there. We love it. Thank you for supporting us. Laurie Kilmartin, thank you for being here. And we'll be back soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye.